What's going on, guys? It's NY Prepper here. In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about a critically important aspect of a bug out location and primary residence that a lot of preppers and even non-preppers overlook when they're buying a new house, renting a new apartment, building a bug out location, or building a house. And I'll let you guys take a guess as to what that is. I'm actually standing inside of it right now. So if you guessed basement, you're correct, okay? A basement is a very, very important aspect of a bug out location, okay? And not just your bug out location, but especially your primary residence where you live 70% of the time, okay? You should have a basement in your primary residence, and if you can't get a primary residence that has a basement in it, then you want to be able to at least have access to some type of basement, okay? So I'm going to go into some of the reasons why a basement is so important, but before I do that, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background as to what motivated me to make this video. So obviously, over the last 2 weeks, we've been following the situation in Ukraine, and I've mentioned to you guys that I'm going to make a video on how to make an improvised fallout shelter inside of your home in the worst case event of a nuclear bomb going off near you. I want to do a video to show you guys how you can make a fallout shelter in your house. And one of the critical components of a fallout shelter, especially a hasty fallout shelter that you make on your own in a short amount of time, is that you want to already find a location that's underground when you build your hasty fallout shelter. And a lot of people were commenting on my videos and telling me that, you know, they don't have a basement or they don't have access to one, and what are the alternatives? And you can still find a good fallout shelter and build a good fallout shelter if you don't have a basement, but having a basement will really help you with reducing fallout radiation. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later in the video, but you know, in addition to what's going on in Ukraine, me personally right now, I'm in the process of relocating out of New York State, and you know, I'm looking for new places to live, and the market right now is very tight. It's hard to find a good place. But one of the things that I'm really keeping my eye on when I'm looking for new places is making sure that this new place I go to has a basement in it, okay? That's very, very important. And obviously there's a lot of people right now that are relocating because of COVID. A lot of people have finally realized the downsides of living in a city or living in a crowded suburban area, and a lot of people are relocating out of the cities and moving further out towards the country or even into the country. And you know, that's one of the biggest trends that we've seen in the last 6 months to a year since COVID you know, started. There's been a ton of people just relocating to rural areas, and people are just trying to get out of the cities because they realize the downsides of being in a city, especially when there's a pandemic. You're locked down, you can't go anywhere, everything is closed down. There's a lot of people in a small space, and you know, you can get sick from other people. I've talked about the negatives of living in a city before, you know, the main negatives being that you have a lot of people in a small area, so if there's a disaster, you're going to be fighting for resources with millions of people. In addition to that, you know, the government in the city controls the water, they control the heat, they control the sewage removal, they control garbage removal. The city that you live in controls all your resources, okay? And because everything is paved over, you don't have any natural resources that you can go to and gather water and hunt for food, or you know, you just don't have that in a city. But you know, there's a lot of people right now relocating out of cities. I have some friends that are in the process of doing it as well. And so I would urge you guys to, when you're trying to find a new place, make sure it has a basement in it, okay? If you can't find a basement, make sure that you have access to one. So let's say you're renting an apartment building, and or you're renting inside of an apartment building, you're renting an apartment. Make sure that your apartment building has some kind of underground storage area or underground basement. It could even be a laundry room. A lot of apartment buildings have laundry rooms downstairs underground, or they have boiler rooms and things like that. Make sure that your apartment has some kind of underground area, okay? Ideally, having your own basement is the best case scenario for a variety of reasons. But if in the worst case scenario, if you can't get a place that has a basement, then you want to make sure you have access to a basement, okay? And I'm going to go into the reasons why, okay? Same thing if you're buying a house, make sure you buy a house that has a basement in it, all right? Don't buy a house that's on a slab. Having a basement is a very, very good thing, okay? And I'm going to explain some of the reasons why. And obviously, if you're building a bug out location or a vacation home that's in a remote location, if you're going to go to that extent of buying land, getting building permits, and building a house, you should include a basement in your architectural drawings, okay? If you're going to spend that much money to build a bug out location, it's useless to build a bug out location without a basement. A basement is absolutely essential, okay? It's more important than being isolated. It's very, very important to have a basement, all right? So I'm going to explain some of the reasons why a basement is important. So with everything going on with Ukraine, obviously the need for a fallout shelter is a huge thing right now. And, as we go forward into the future, the chances of World War III and a nuclear exchange of some kind increase as time goes on. Okay, we know that Russia and China are getting stronger, and it seems like it's inevitable that we're going to have some kind of a nuclear exchange in the future. And so that's one of the number one benefits of a basement, is that you can shelter in your basement to protect yourself from fallout, okay? Now, not just from fallout, but you can also protect yourself from natural disasters like tornadoes and hurricanes and severe thunderstorms. You can take shelter inside of your basement. A good solid basement is basically like a bunker, okay? You should think about a basement as your bunker, okay? It's your own personal bunker that you have inside of your house that's going to protect you from nuclear fallout, from hurricanes, from tornadoes, and from a lot of other things as well, okay? Another benefit to a basement is that the temperature is stable throughout the year, okay? So you can use the basement to store your preps and anything that's sensitive to temperatures, like freeze-dried food, canned food, batteries, ammunition, different types of things that have a sensitivity to temperature extremes are going to be protected inside of your basement, okay? Because basements are underground, they have a stable temperature all year round, okay? Now, depending on how your basement is built, there may be times in the winter months where the temperature plummets a little bit, especially closer to exterior walls, okay? But for the most part, a basement should maintain a temperature of between 40 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year, okay, with a relatively moderate level of humidity. And if your basement has a lot of humidity, all you have to do is just buy a dehumidifier to control the humidity so it doesn't get too high and you don't have issues with corrosion and other issues related to high humidity, all right? And dehumidifiers, they don't use a lot of power, and it doesn't cost that much to leave one in your basement to control the humidity. If your basement floods, or the house that you're interested has a basement that floods, you have to get yourself a sump pump, okay? That's really the best way to control any kind of flooding. My particular basement here, we used to have flooding issues here, and we did everything we could to control the flooding, but what really helped was a sump pump. All right, we drilled a hole into the foundation and we put a sump pump, and the sump pump will take care of any kind of flooding concerns you have. All right, and then the dehumidifier will take care of the humidity. So in addition to protecting you from fallout, from natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, thunderstorms, storage, all right, all those things are huge benefits to having a basement, all right? But another thing that's really good about having a basement is that you can create yourself a safe room inside of your basement, and that's really where a basement is so key to a prepper. And so what you can do is you can create yourself a fallout shelter in your basement, and I don't have one here right now, but maybe in the future, I'd like to build a permanent fallout shelter / safe room, okay? And I'm going to talk about that in future videos, but you can build yourself a permanent, deliberate fallout shelter / safe room inside of a portion of your basement, okay? You can make yourself a safe room that you can use to protect yourself from fallout radiation, from hurricanes, from tornadoes. You can also use it to protect you from marauders and anybody that breaks into your home. You can use it as a safe room that's protected from any kind of bad people that enter your home. You can actually build an emergency escape tunnel from that safe room and from that fallout shelter that goes underground. So this way you have a way of escaping from your house or your bug out location in case marauders come. And this is not something you can do if you don't have a basement, okay? If you don't have a basement, you're not going to be able to build a permanent safe room inside of your living room, okay? It's just your wife's not going to allow that, and you're not going to be able to sell your house. You need a basement if you want to build yourself a permanent safe room, okay? And typically a permanent safe room would include the use of concrete blocks and even bullet-resistant materials to line the walls, and reinforcing them with reinforced steel, okay? Reinforcing the concrete blocks with rebar, so this way somebody can't just break down your safe room with a sledgehammer and gain access to the inside, all right? But you can use that safe room to store your preps, and you can use it as a fallout shelter. You can use it as a place to hide when marauders come or burglars come. And then you can build yourself an emergency escape tunnel from that safe room, okay? And in order to do that, you're going to have to cut a hole inside of your basement wall, okay? Your foundation wall. You're going to have to cut a hole and put a PVC tunnel underground, and that'll give you a way to escape from your house, okay? But that's, going a lot more advanced. I'm not saying that you guys have to do that, but at the very least, having a basement protects you from fallout just because you're underground, okay? Just being underground inside of a basement where you have solid concrete walls all around you and you're underground is going to protect you from gamma rays, okay? And if you're upstairs and you're at ground level, you're going to be subjected to a lot more radiation than if you're inside of a basement, okay? So, just being inside of a basement without any shelter at all is going to reduce radiation considerably than if you're in a ground level area where you're at ground level, okay? So now, being underground and being surrounded by heavy concrete walls like you see behind me here is going to reduce the radiation, but you can also build an improvised fallout shelter in the worst case scenario inside of your basement, which would reduce the radiation to a very safe level inside of that fallout shelter. And you can make improvised fallout shelters from a lot of different materials, and I'm going to do a separate video on that as well. But that's one of the key benefits to a basement is, you know, being able to have a place where you can shelter from fallout, from marauders. You can build a safe room. You can build improvised fallout shelter inside of it. You could use it for storage, okay? And now with COVID and everything else, you know, gyms being closed down, you can set up a home gym inside of your basement. That's not something you can do inside of your living room, especially if you lift any kind of heavy weights. So there's a lot of benefits to having a basement. So I urge you guys, if you're buying a new house, if you're renting an apartment, if you're building a house, building a bug out location, whatever the situation is, try to get a place that has a basement, because you're going to need it to store your preps. You're going to need it to build yourself a hasty fallout shelter if there's ever any kind of nuclear war. And you could use it to hunker down and survive natural disasters. You can also use your basement as a bomb shelter, not just from fallout, but from the blast. Okay, so if there's bombs going off outside, if you go into your basement, you're going to be protected from any kind of blast waves that are coming through the area, okay, because you're below ground, so you're not going to be subjected to a blast wave as if you're upstairs at ground level, okay? So now obviously there's going to be rubble on top of you when the blast wave comes through. The rubble could potentially bury you depending on how strong the blast wave is. You know, but you still have a better chance at surviving if you're in your basement or you're inside of a basement underground somewhere when the blast wave comes through than if you're at ground level where you're going to be subjected to the full force of the blast wave, okay? So, you know, there's so many benefits to having a basement or having access to one. Again, if you can't find a place that has a basement, you should try to get access to some kind of basement or underground, area within reasonable distance of where you're going to be living, okay? So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you found it useful. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up button. And as always, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.